You are watching
This is
Xirtus.
crazy though. I didn't know about this labyrinth. There was a labyrinth in front of the
There you
pyramid
go.
that's covered over.
Yeah. Well, you heard about the water
Yes,
thing,
sir.
right? Did you see the whole thing with
Yeah,
the
that they floated the stones up from the Nile.
and the
'Cause the
Nile was
stone,
diverted to Giza? Yeah, exactly.
the capstone. What is it? The stone that this pyramids are built out of is the sandstone of the Giza Plateau. It's literally carved right out of like the quarry. It's built on top of like a
This might
quarry.
sound better now.
It does sound better.
But
Yeah, I think so. But I think some of the
Makes
pyramid
sense.
rocks do come from like thousands of miles away, right? Isn't that
right,
they
yeah,
float
the casing stones and the top stone and all apparently came from
So
like
what I bring up with like all the research
500 miles?
I've
Yeah,
done into the like megalithics and what is the polygonal megalithic structures, it seems that a lot of it is geopolymer. And Bob Greenier with the wind hex machine that it breaks down the rock at like the ionic level into dust or whatever, that's the essentially just with swirling wind, that it's a potential of how the ancients were able to move all of these thousands of tons, millions of tons worth of material. It's like it was as dust, in bags, like a more advanced concrete, just something that's a lot similar. Like they're not needing harmonic levitation or like wild alien lasers. It's like the most reasonable explanation could be that they just figured a way to grind down the stone into this dust, and then a way the geopolymer works is it's a chemical bond as opposed to the cement we have today, which is weaker compared to Roman cement, which was also a geopolymer, which was that chemical bond
right.
reforming and crystallizing
But
the
you've seen
material.
can you pull up my screen share for a second?
well
You've seen this video here where they build like the Suez or the Panama Canal style thing. And that's if you just that one really quickly shows. Yeah, there you go. That was it. Where like
Oh, that's
basically
right.
this is a short clip, but they have
yeah, I've seen this.
stacks of papyrus,
Flood it
and
all out. You build like coffer dams and flood everything in. And
yeah, there's a flood right there. They float the stones. They don't have to have them above the water. They just have to be buoyant enough. Which it's apparently, I think it's like 16 of these stomach sacks that they'd have to use. They did some math on these for the heaviest stones, which is not as heavy. I mean, most of these stones are not nearly as heavy as the heaviest stones, right? There's like maybe four
really,
major heavy stones. A lot of them are still pretty large, but it's completely convenient to float them. And they've done a lot of. This guy's got a
I
channel called
just look
Pyramids
at
Really
the
Built.
economics of such a construction project and having run like big construction projects myself, just trying to envision how they did this multi-generational.
I mean, this is cool because they can reuse the sacks, right? So you got the
Well,
sacks on the water, it floats them
again,
across.
but think of sacks. If you're using it as like
They're
a
made of animal hides.
geopolymer cement, all you're doing is filling sacks and letting it dry. And then that's why it's like paper thin. They probably use like a paper or something in there. And then that's also how you got each polygonal block, which is made them essentially earthquake proof because it absorbs the force as it comes in, because every block is slightly different. So it's like they're not having to like chisel each individual rock, measuring it into the rest. It's like if you work construction, which I've now been doing for the last 3 months and watching all the concrete pour, it's like you just see how they make the forms, pour it in, and a day later it's solidified. And now looking at a lot of the other ancient megalithic sites, I'm seeing what appears to be like where wood was, where these forms were and stuff.
This
But
part, I don't understand how the water stays inside this chamber as it goes up the
So it
pyramid.
only goes for like sections of the chamber,
So
right?
it's like locks, like a
It's
lock.
locked up like each floor. So they're not showing it properly right there. Like you need to like
Yeah,
cut
because all
back a
that
bit.
water would just flow out. They wouldn't be
And you'd
able
have
to.
extreme pressure. So see, you've got this is the size of the chambers. So the
Yeah.
water comes in and it comes out and it comes in again, which is explains a lot about river flooding because taking the water from the Nile and then causing this desertification, we always wonder like why is it a desert where it used to be a tropical paradise in Egypt? What if the pyramids are literally the reason that most of this area has environmental disaster, right?
So to build these cofferdams out of stone and build them watertight, there's got to be evidence of like pitch or tar, being used to plug, the leaks, because I don't know what else they had in those times to really like plug the small gaps or leaks in that kind
I
of.
mean, you also could have interlocking pieces. You just have waxed boards that fit in between where the rock, where the same way that the boats work. You have interlocking boards that keep water from going in between the gaps.
That seems
and you just
like
push pressure. You basically create pressure chambers where the water pressure is higher.
The idea behind this theory is to reduce the amount of labor of the actual construction project.
Yeah, because you're able to free float the rock, so you shouldn't have that much weight.
For all the cofferdams, you have to build these extreme precision cuts. I mean, that's still a good deal of.
And where's the evidence of those dams?
Good deal of work and stuff. So
there are now. That's the thing. Ever since this theory that we've been pushing, the idea of being possible in the last few years, I think it's the last 2 years, they found LiDAR proof of diversion of the Nile towards Giza, and there was literally a cut off to the Nile where it dams out.
Go there? No, that's been on my bucket list for years. I've always wanted to go to Egypt and see the damn pyramids.
We are doing it either this year or next. Probably next year because it's still a little bit turbulent.
Years, man. I'll do it.
Yeah.
But I'm.
Mars Danger has to be old enough to go into the pyramids with you, right?
Yeah, I want all the kids to go. That would be great. And
here's the long lost river in Egypt, possibly solving the ancient pyramid mystery, right? So there's been a number of stories that have come out. The 40-mile long river branch, which ran by the iconic Giza pyramid complex, among the others, was hidden under the desert. This is completely off topic, but do you ever think about how like Jews don't really use vowels, and Giza and Gaza would be written the same way? Doesn't matter. But the existence of the river would explain that 31 pyramids were built in a chain along the now inhospitable desert strip between the Nile Valley between 4,700 and 3,700 years ago. See that like that 1,000-year thing kind of is interesting because you wouldn't expect it to be like that difficult to figure out when these pyramids were, but we're basically using historical records. People didn't talk about pyramids. All of a sudden they're talking about pyramids. There's nothing in the Bible about pyramids, right? For instance.
Then again, if you've ever made geopolymers, right? So about geopolymer, dude, mixing up the water glass and ash, man, it takes a lot of, you have to like really stir it, like just to make a small amount. It took a considerable amount of labor for me to just.
And it's still pretty easy for people to tell. I mean, the crystallization process doesn't make the stone not obviously geopolymer. So it seems like it's pretty clear that these are cut stones, but I'm not saying it's impossible. Over a period of time, the whole point of the geopolymer is that it becomes a stone solid because of the crystal that's growing in between.
I'd postulate it's probably a combination of like all of the above sort of thing. And
right, because there's two kinds of stones at least.
Yeah,
the
like
casing stones and
sandstone was probably the ones that were like that. And then like the basalt more likely probably wasn't geopolymer, right? Like those were massive. Like
how did
they found them in quarries, right, where they had stopped cutting them, sort of thing.
Well, yeah, so it's about 1,000 kilometers away, right?
I mean, I mix a concrete. If I mix concrete, I use a concrete tub and a hoe, right, or like a shovel. That's like the easiest way. You tip it on an angle, you pour. I wonder if there was another. I wonder how they made concrete back in the day, and all we have is Vesuvius ash from one of
I think it could be a natural accident that's discovered. Right? So like Phoenicians and Greeks, they had great in Mediterranean. They had great accidental concrete because were in the process of smashing stones and using water to wash away things. Something was created often with a mixture of shale, clay sediment, the water that's from the river, and seashells, right? Seashells even being broken up. And this created natural geopolymers that I'm sure that sailors started to recognize and they started to make on purpose.